Attention Deficit Squirrel, New York. In that tree over there.
Oh, what is that? A warning! Oh no! Oh no! FBI? Who is this FBI? What are they trying to warn us about?
This shouldn't be complicated.
Oh, shit. And that, ladies and gentlemen, should be the new slogan on every Washington, D.C. license plate. Doesn't he know who he's talking to?
This shouldn't be complicated. Peaceful protests must be protected. Riots must be stopped. No one has a right to assault another person, to firebomb a building, to throw a Molotov cocktail into a police car. That's not exercising a constitutional right. That is terrorizing your fellow citizens. More and more, we're seeing signs that a significant portion of this violence, of this rioting, is not random, it's not spontaneous. Rather, it is coordinated and inspired by leftist, anarchist groups, groups like Antifa, that will, without shame, exploit a national tragedy to attack American buildings, American homes, and American lives.
I want you to remember that he said significant portion of this violence, as I think it's an important distinction that he's making. So tuck that little tidbit away in the recesses of your mind. You'll need it for later. I find it difficult, if not impossible, to argue with anything that he just said right there. However, as you may or may not know, the Democrats have been playing dumber than usual, being little contradictory comediantes.
Argument's an intellectual process. Contradiction is just the automatic gainsaying of anything the other person says.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
Not at all.
No, look.
Thank you.
Denying what they are seeing unfold before their own eyes, without any solid evidence or arguments to defend their claims of peaceful protest not turning into violent riots every single night in places like Portland. They devolve every single investigation and committee hearing into a bullying barrage of obfuscation and obstruction.
Reclaiming my time.
Yeah,
Reclaiming
I'm
my
answering
time.
your question.
Well, you gotta let him answer.
Reclaiming my time. Reclaiming my time, sir. Reclaiming my time, and I know you don't want to answer.
I'm not saying that.
I reclaim my time.
Reclaiming my time.
Reclaiming my time.
Reclaiming my time. Reclaiming my time, Mr. Attorney. Reclaiming my time. Reclaiming my time, Mr. Barr.
Okay, reclaiming my time. Excuse me, the time is fine.
I may reclaim my time, sir.
I think in another one I voted by
Reclaiming my
mail.
time. Okay, reclaiming my time.
Publication.
Reclaiming my time, sir.
I will
Quibbling
get to
over-
that. Reclaiming my time. You answered the question.
That's what-
Mr. Attorney General,
I think
reclaiming
that's
my
what I
time.
was talking about.
Reclaiming my time.
I've waited a long time for you to come here. The time is mine. The time is mine.
Substances.
Mr. Attorney General, reclaiming my time.
Reclaiming my time, sir.
Without a rule, I think DHS.
Reclaiming my time. I'm surprised at your lack of respect.
Thank you.
They are attempting to gaslight the American people into thinking that they are the assholes for even dreaming that Antifa is real, or for even dreaming that they are riots they are witnessing. And they've been doing this since almost day one of the George I was hiding fentanyl up my ass Floyd riots. So right around this time, Ted Cruz says what we've all been thinking for years now, that black lives really don't matter to Black Lives Matter. If they did, defunding the police is the last thing they'd want to do. Encapsulated everything by saying this.
With their stated number one objective of defunding and abolishing every police department, many, many more black lives would be lost because more African Americans would be murdered without the police officers that bravely risked their lives to defend those communities.
It's also right around this time that he gives the floor to this lady over here. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Democratic Congresswoman from our volcanic outcrop island chain. No, not that one, and there it is, Hawaiian Representative Mazie Buzzword Hirono, the redundant. Some of you might remember her from the Brett Kavanaugh smear hearings, where she said that men of this country need to shut up and step up. I remember her best for this CNN interview where she clearly just learned a new word that day. Ready. And
I think she expected a modicum of a fair, have any kind of a modicum of understanding, expecting a modicum of fairness where there's not even a modicum of fairness. The trauma continues, this kind of trauma, personal trauma. We re-victimize and re-traumatize. To me, 2 of them have been raped, almost attempted rape.
so here is her reply to everything that has just been discussed by Senator Cruz. And with that, the Dingbat has the floor.
Mr. Chairman, I have to say, sometimes I don't think you listen. So how many times have I had to say that we all should be denouncing violent extremists of every stripe?
Does that include
by
Antifa?
the way, I have the time.
Reclaiming my time, Dingbat. On the surface, you might be able to look at this situation and say, she has the floor, don't interrupt. But her attitude here, in my opinion, is completely incongruent with someone who really believes what she's saying. The fact that she won't condemn Antifa, coupled with her condescending tone and attitude,
What a bitch.
makes it difficult to take her at face value. That's my way of saying, I think she's full of shit, folks.
By the way, you know, the Republicans are constantly using, I have to say, you brought it up yourself, the deaths of these black police officers, Patrick Underwood and David Dorn, for making political points. And the fact that it was right-wing extremists who killed Officer Underwood, that seems to be lost in this argument.
You don't know what you're talking about, do you?
All right there, Yoda. First things first. It's not lost in the argument at all, because nobody is arguing that right-wing extremism isn't bad.
That isn't what I said. Like, you're pushing it past what I said by a substantial margin.
Nobody is unwilling to denounce right-wing extremism here. The Republicans aren't the ones giving blanket statements about extremism. Also, remember, he did say significant portion.
More and more, we're seeing signs that a significant portion of this violence, of this rioting, is not random, it's not spontaneous. Rather, it is coordinated and inspired by leftist, anarchist groups like Antifa.
Significant portion of. In other words, not all. And by the way, let's talk about using deaths for political points. Who just used a funeral to make a hyper-partisan propagandized eulogy? The answer, by the way, is the same person who used the funeral of 5 Dallas police officers who were slain by Black Lives Matter to call police officers racist during a hyper-partisan propagandized eulogy.
Nigga, please.
Who uses the still warm bodies of children after school shootings as an opportunity to push radical gun legislation? Who uses the killings of black Americans by police officers to garner votes? Hell, you scumbags even weaponized COVID, delaying the stimulus package to try and sneak in legislation you've been wanting to pass. Because you knew you couldn't get it done any other way. But when you saw people with their backs against the wall, your little dicks got hard, didn't they? Fucking scumbags.
And now there are all these attacks about Black Lives Matter and what they're saying. I mean, how many of us even think that defunding police departments is should be taken literally? I mean, I certainly don't.
You don't think that's what that means? And that's part of the fucking problem right now, is the amount of denial that's on display. Look at this graphic over here! And do the math, Moana. Once they remove that $1 billion from the budget of the New York City Police Department, that is almost their entire budget, aside from paying salaries. So what about equipment, ammunition, uniforms? The New York City Police Department, like many big city police departments, have horses. Those horses need stables. Those horses need food. Those horses need medical care. What about maintaining patrol cars, buying new interceptors? You see where I'm going with this, but I don't know why I'm surprised that you don't believe this. I'm talking about a group of people who can't even admit that the riots are happening or that Antifa even exists. What is it going to take for the Democrats to stop lying and finally admit it's happening? Reconditioning? You don't seem to be opposed to white people going through reconditioning to undo their whiteness, which is odd coming from a group of people so opposed to conversion therapy, so why not reconditioning for Democrats?
So, you know, we have this pesky thing called freedom of speech. And I'd say that the people who support Black Lives Matter, and if they're calling for various boycotts and all that, that's called freedom of speech. And that's what this hearing title is. Protecting speech. So all I can say is, look, we should all join hands and denouncing and whatever words you want to use about violent extremism of all stripes. And I think we can all agree on that.
This coming from a woman who I don't think is being sarcastic when she calls freedom of speech a pesky thing. From Silicon Valley censoring right-wing commentators to outright banning some of them from every major social media network.
Do you understand that? Serious crap. I'm sick of being social engineered. It's not funny.
To the radical leftists on college campuses who use fear, intimidation, and violence in an attempt to stop people they deem offensive from being able to speak at their schools. To Democrats' attempts at making an amendment to the Constitution that would repeal the First Amendment with respect to political speech. They clearly only care about freedom of speech when it's convenient for them or serves their purpose. And when it doesn't, it's hate speech or violence, as if words can be violent. And by their metric, what Black Lives Matter is doing should be considered both of those things. So you can keep your empty kumbaya platitudes about joining hands and denouncing violent extremism of every stripe, because if you meant that, then you would acknowledge the extremism within Black Lives Matter, and that their beliefs that white people are subhumans, along with their list of demands for white people, are nothing short of racist. And the fact that they have openly threatened death to police officers and have delivered on those threats on more than one occasion make them, in my opinion, a terrorist organization. And I think we should all agree on that. And yet, here we are. But notice she still says nothing about Antifa.
So to constantly accuse Democrats of not caring about that is really, I can only say that you aren't listening.
Oh, God, that is one of the funniest goddamn things ever. I gotta see that again.
Sometimes I don't think you listen. I can only say that you aren't listening.
What are you saying? Don't care.
Say what you want to about it, but her comic timing is pure gold. She's talking about everyone constantly blaming Democrats for not caring about violent extremism, while she shows that she doesn't care about violent extremism. And unless it's right-wing extremism, none of them do care. We are seeing that in Portland right now. The only reason they do care about it now is because the optics are helping Trump to get reelected. And that's all they really care about. It's not about people getting hurt. It's not about property being damaged. It's not about buildings getting burned to the fucking ground. It's all about how good it makes Trump look. That's all they care about.
So I hope this is the end of this hearing, Mr. Chairman, and that we don't have to listen to any more of your rhetorical speeches. Thank you very much. I'm leaving.
Well, I appreciate the, as always, kind and uplifting words of Senator Hirono.
Thank you.
And I would also note that throughout her remarks, she still did not say a negative word about Antifa, nor has any Democrat here. They instead engage in a political game where they depend. You're welcome to say something negative about Antifa right now.
I think that I've covered the subject quite well. You are not listening.
Okay, she declined to speak, so that is the position.
What the hell kind of way to act is that?
Note also that of
She's
the
a
7
liberal.
Democratic senators who spoke, not a one of them apologized for or denounced multiple Democrats calling law enforcement officers Nazis, stormtroopers, and Gestapo. To be fair, I have not heard the word Nazi, but stormtrooper was Nancy Pelosi and Gestapo was another Democratic leader. That is less than helpful. And with that, this hearing is adjourned.
So, there it is, folks. Typical leftist. When you can't defend and you can no longer deflect, you defect.
Run away! Run away! Run away!
So, welcome, crazy Mazie Buzzword Hirono, the redundant. You now join the illustrious ranks of leftist dingbats who refuse to condemn Antifa.
Will you condemn the Antifa attack in Washington over the weekend? It's easy to condemn terrorism. Will you condemn it? Will you condemn Antifa for the attack in Washington?
We'll be making statements.
Do you condemn Antifa for their violent actions against American law enforcement?
At least you're not denying they exist, so that's a start, I guess. Anyway, I'll let all of you reclaim your time. If you've watched until now, it really means a lot to me, so please be sure to comment, like, share, subscribe! Seriously, please consider subscribing. That would also mean a lot to me. And go for the ring, grab the bull by the horns, grab it by the pussy, god damn it. And thank you so much for watching.
You don't know what you're talking about, do you? Sir? I said, you don't know what you're talking about.
It's not even a modicum.
That is the position of
What
the
the hell kind
Democratic
of way to
Party.
act is
I would
that?
note also that of the 7
She's on
Democratic
drugs.
senators who
Rape.
Thank you.
Nub it! Yeah.